What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Mikey McNuggets, Jason Lloyd coming at you for another edition of the Ultimate Cavaliers Show. Jason, we are past the quarter way, but not at the 1/3 way point of the season. Bull and I got into the schematics of, is it 27% of the season done or 28%?
Of course you did.
It doesn't really matter. As I
That
try
sounds
to
like a bull argument.
We are here essentially to do a quarter season of the year review. I think it's closer to the quarter point than the third point. So we're calling it the quarter season in review. We're going to go over today one thing we got right in our preseason predictions about this Cavaliers team, one thing we got wrong in our preseason predictions, and one thing that we still have uncertainty about as the Cavs play their next 60-something games to get ready for the playoffs. But before we jump into any of that, Jason, you were on UCSS today. The Cavs got bumped up to number 1 in the NBA.com power rankings. The first time all season they've been bumped up to that top spot. In your opinion, real quick, what changed and why now for the Cavs to make that first and hopefully prolonged stay at the top spot in the NBA.com power rankings?
I think it just took people not too long because the Cavs needed to prove themselves. They needed to take this sort of run to solidify themselves as a top team. And I think they've done that. You know, look at some of the teams that they've beaten. The fact that they were able to beat Boston a couple weeks ago helps. And, you know, Denver, and they've had some good wins this year. So I think that they finally just have won people over.
Yeah, I told Bull, when you make power rankings to start a season, you're factoring some preconceived ideas and philosophies of what these teams can be, what they did last season.
Yes.
And when you reach this point, it's really about what you've done this year. What you did last year is kind of irrelevant. And to your point, the Cavs have the best record in basketball. They're top 10 in both offensive rating, defensive rating, net rating, pace, three-point shooting, all the metrics you want to be high in. And frankly, it's probably a week or two too late, but better late than never for the Cavs.
Yeah. Well-deserved. They've earned it. And see how long they can hold on to it.
All right, Jason, let's jump into our quarter season review. One thing we got right, one thing we got wrong, and one thing we are still unsure about. You can start first. One thing you were right about with the Cavs that we discussed preseason that has been proven true through the first 20-something games of the year.
So we talked all summer about backcourt, front court, backcourt. Everybody did. Backcourt, front court, backcourt, front court. What do you have to break up? Da, 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 da. And, you know, we wrote the story in May about Darius's representatives could go if Donovan resigns and ask for a trade. But on the court, you know, I maintained that I thought Darius had a bad year last year, but Darius and Donovan could work together as two playmakers playing alongside each other. If they broke them up, I didn't think it was going to necessarily be because of the on-court reasons, and we've seen that play out. Darius obviously has come back very motivated. He's having a much better season than he did last year, and he and Donovan, all that talk about can Donovan and Darius play together, all that's gone away because I pointed out 2 years ago nobody was talking about it. You know, it was only a last year thing because Darius was struggling so badly, and everybody knows the reasons why. But 2 years ago, nobody was talking about can Donovan and Darius play together because they fit pretty well together. So I'm not terribly surprised that those two have worked together, have found some cohesion and some rhythm playing alongside each other in the backcourt.
Yeah, they're not just playing well alongside each other, Jason. I think they're bringing out the best in each other. And that's something that we had hoped for and seen in spurts of the first 2 years of their pairing. But this year it's been on display seemingly night in and night out. Their ability to kind of play off each other, but in the clutch also pick and choose whose night it is, whose turn it is, depending on who has the hotter hand, has made them essentially unguardable down the stretch when they really need a bucket. The luxury that Kenny Atkinson has in two different all-star caliber ball handlers that can put pressure on the defense, get in the paint, kick out, get in the paint, score for themselves, is just an absolute nightmare to try and defend. And is it ever going to be a perfect defensive pairing? No. It certainly helps when you have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley behind you, so it's not putting too much pressure on those guards to keep guys out of the paint. You have two elite rim protectors with those two back there. But to everyone who had those questions, and I think to an extent they had some validity, it's been quashed early this season because when they're both playing up to standard, if not above, they're two of the best guards in the Eastern Conference, no matter how you want to slice and dice it. And at the end of the day, basketball is a talent game. The team with the better players typically wins. And 9 out of 10 times, the Cavs have the better backcourt than their opponent, And that's been proven night after night after night so far this season.
Yeah, their clutch numbers are terrific. Their shooting numbers are terrific. Donovan's three-point shooting is up. Darius looks like the player that he was a couple of years ago again. It's all fitting together as well as the Cavs possibly could have hoped.
And one last thing on Donovan before I get to my thing I was right about preseason. I feel like last year when it would have been easy for Donovan to, I'm going to use a bad example or a bad metaphor, but he could have sold the stock on Darius, right? Like he very easily could have said, that's not the guy I want in the backcourt with me. We got to find someone else, better fit, better defensive player, whatever. Donovan kind of feel like he did the opposite and kind of reeled in Darius. You saw in that Orlando series and at points in the Boston series when Darius would make a big play, he was the first one over there. This year in some crucial crunch time situations, he's laying back and letting Darius kind of take the reins. I go back to the Milwaukee game where Donovan closed the first one. Darius closed the second one against Philadelphia. Darius was incredible down the stretch too. His willingness to step back and let Darius shine in those big moments, I feel like has boosted DG's confidence through the roof as well. And confidence in real life also translates to the court. And when you feel good, you play better. I totally believe in all of those silly cliches, but they actually matter. And right now, those two guards are playing with extreme confidence and it's showing.
Last thing on this, it sort of touches on what you're talking about. I'm writing something this week on just sort of the fact that within 6 months, Donovan and Deshaun both arrived to Cleveland in blockbuster trades with far different results. And I was talking to Donovan about it last week, and he just said, like, when he got here, and this has nothing to do with Deshaun. This is Donovan specific to the Cavs. When Donovan got here, he wanted to sort of ingratiate. He didn't want to be the star walking in that everyone's going to defer to me. He walked in and made very clear that, like, hey, this is your guys' team. You know, I'm here to help. And I think his mindset went a long way in making this work. And I'll go back to, you know, when LeBron came back and Kyrie was already here, it was a much different vibe. Now they figured it out and they won a championship. So I'm not saying they did it wrong, but obviously LeBron was an alpha walking back in, and Kyrie thought that was going to be his team. And then suddenly he had to surrender 97% of the oxygen in the room to another big dog walking in. And Donovan handled his arrival here much, much differently. And I just think that it has helped. I just think that it's helped the relationship in the time that they've been together.
It's going to be a fascinating story. You know what day it's going to publish, Jason, or is it still a work in progress?
I was supposed to write it today, but I didn't. So I'll probably write it. Hopefully I write it tomorrow and it'll run on Thursday.
Beautiful. All right, here's the thing I was right about preseason, Jason, and that is if the Cavs are going to win an NBA championship, Evan Mobley's got to be either the best player or a 1A, 1B situation with Donovan Mitchell. And we saw that on Saturday in particular against the Charlotte Hornets when he put on not just a good performance, Jason, not just a great performance, Jason. How about a historical performance? Mobley joined Kevin Durant as only the second player in NBA history, 25 years or younger, to score 41 points in a game, make 6 threes, grab 10 rebounds, and block 3 shots. He did that against the Charlotte Hornets. It's also no surprise, Jason, that 2 days after that game happened, the Cavs were bumped up to number 1 in the power rankings. Just saying. What Evan Mobley does to this team when he's making is a big help, yes. But taking with confidence those 3-point shots. You talked about it on Monday. We kind of discussed it quickly, but we had a Browns game to recap. The pure gravity he draws by being just a threat, not a knockdown shooter. He doesn't have to be Steph Curry from the corner. He doesn't have to be Bruce Bowen. He just has to be a threat that defenses feel they cannot leave bare ass open, and that changes the entire geometry of this offense. We talked at length, Jason, how Kenny Atkinson thus far has made the spacing with the 2 bigs work. He staggered him a ton, but the off-ball movement, the cutting, he's gotten that 2 big lineup without either being a particularly great shooter to work, and it helps when everyone else is shooting exponentially above their career averages. But besides the point, you know what you don't have to worry about? 2 bigs who can't shoot if Evan Mobley's going to make 4 or 5 threes a game. You go down to a 1 big who doesn't shoot, and you can play your 2 bigs against any lineup. They have the defensive versatility and flexibility to match up with anyone. I'm just going to throw the highlights up here as I talk, but I mean, against Charlotte, the way he catches in rhythm with confidence, Jason, last year, it was hesitant. Last year, he was thinking. Right now, Evan Mobley, and I mean this in the best way possible, isn't thinking on the offensive end of the court. He's just playing. He's reacting. And that is something that through a million different coaching techniques can be fixed, can be worked on. Some guys have the inherent ability to do it. Other guys, it doesn't come as natural. Evan, even in his post-game interviews, is a more passive guy by nature. He's a shy guy. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but he's not a type A personality. But when he plays and shoots like this, Jason, he's a type A player that you have to keep constant eyes on. And look at that one. I mean, that's an extra pass with a guy running out. He doesn't care. Yep. He's shooting it with confidence. If he plays like this, he's obviously not going to score 41 points every night. But if he can take 5 threes, make 2 of them a night, Jason, it changes everything. And if he's doing it and scoring at that level and shooting with this efficiency, he's right up there with Donovan as the best player on the team in terms of importance, what he does on both ends of the court, rivals Donovan. Donovan's still the closer. Evan's not in one game surpassing him. But on that same level, when you have 2 guys with that kind of impact, not many teams in the league can say they have 2 players of that caliber, and the ones that do are all in the elite championship tier.
Yeah, I'm with you. We took a lot of fire, particularly last year, from the guys on the set about saying it's in there. It's in there with Mobley. It's in there. I still believe it's in there. We haven't seen it, but people who know more about basketball than I do, people who do this for a living, scouts and NBA people kept saying, this dude can play. Like, this guy is special. So I get why people doubted it. And just based on the eye test, I would have doubted it too. But just in talking to people around the league, they were adamant, this is in there. They got to get it out of them. And now they're getting out of them. And I'll go one step further. In the minutes when Jared is not on the floor and it's Evan, if you can play the 5-out style that Boston's playing, you're bringing another layer to this, because nobody on Boston they don't have a big who can guard like Evan can. So not only
Porzingis is good, but not
he ain't Evan. Yeah. So not only do you have the 5-out on the offensive end, you still have an absolute killer in the paint on the defensive end, and a guy who can switch and guard wings. You switch 1 through 5 with Evan, really, if you wanted to. And again, I'll go back to the old championship Cavs. They played 5-out with Channing Frye, but he was a liability defensively. So you had to pick and choose your spots where you could go with a shooting big in the middle, because it's rare. And you're right. Porzingis is not a liability defensively like, maybe Al Horford is for them. But not only is Evan not a liability defensively, he is elite.
He's a major plus.
Yeah. And it's a very rare combination to have a guy who can shoot threes at the way that we hope that Evan can continue to evolve, can handle the ball a little, can attack, and he can guard the rim, and he can guard wings. That's a very, very unique skill set and a very special player.
Yeah, shocker that the 2 guys that know basketball the best on the UCSS cast were right on this one. And everyone who doesn't know basketball, who was yelling at us were wrong, turned out to be wrong. Shock.
I get it. Like,
And you know what? There was some validity to it at the time, but shocker that in the end, the basketball guys won out. But you're right in terms of the skill set. Guys who are elite rim protectors are usually lob threats.
Yeah.
They're not shooters. Yeah. I mean, and just Gobert, Clint Capella, who's not at that level anymore, but DeAndre Jordan, like the guys of that archetype don't shoot. And the guys who shoot, Karl Anthony Towns, for example, who's an elite, legitimately, and he's playing incredible this season. We could have that discussion another day. They fleeced Minnesota. Julius Randle's been a disaster. Cat's been incredible in New York. He's not a rim threat whatsoever. It's usually one or the other. Now, Mobley is not the 3-point shooter Cat is by any means. Cat is not the defensive presence Evan Mobley is by any means. Right. But Evan might be, and Wembanyama is the unicorn that transcends everything in between. Sure. But Mobley might be like the second closest to being able to do both at a high level. Yeah. And if you add that into the equation with the ball handling, the driving kick ability, the 3-point shooting to this Cavs roster, it's just an absolute nightmare to defend. And it gives Kenny Atkinson so much flexibility and versatility in ways he wants to attack opposing defenses, especially in the playoffs where everything is more scouted and it comes down to your best players making big-time plays in big-time moments.
Now that segues into what we got wrong, because I did say that given everything that we thought about Evan, that if they were going to have to break up the front court or the back court, I kept saying they're going to have to pick up the front court. If you're going to make me break up one of them, it's going to have to be the front court because we hadn't seen it yet. Did we think it was in there? Yes. I still believed it was in there. But given where they were at, I just felt like it was too much of an ask. And the floor was just too clogged playing these non-shooters. And if you had to break one of them up, you're going to have to break up the front court. And given how last year ended with Jared Allen, I thought that might be the guy that they're going to have to move on from. They didn't. They held firm. They stayed patient. They held on to the guys that they believed in, and it has paid off for them. So now we may differ a little bit on this ultimately on where we end, because I think that we've seen enough out of Evan to say, okay, you don't have to break up the front court. This is going to work.
Yeah, we'll get to that's kind of my uncertainty, so I'll save my thoughts on that. But yeah, they've proven enough that. Well, you know what? I'll give you my uncertainty now because it plays right off that, Jason. I'll get to the thing I got wrong because I'm holding a big fat L on something that we'll talk about in a sec. But the Jared Allen, Evan Mobley pairing worked in the regular season under JB Bickerstaff too. And we haven't seen them go against playoff defenses yet. And I know it could be over-exaggerated, overstated. Well, it works now. The playoffs are different. And when you're scouted and when you play this team 7 times in a row potentially, night game, night off game, like you kind of know what the other team can do. I'm not saying it can't work. It's a question I still need answered, and we're not going to get that answer until the playoffs. So I understand it is a giant uncertainty, but I still feel like I just need to see it to believe it in terms of those two playing together in crunch moments in a playoff situation. And guess what? Guess what? It may work. They may not even have to come to that situation because of what we just talked about with Mobley. They can play just one of the bigs down the stretch if he's providing the spacing. And if he is going to shoot at this level moving forward, Jason, then all these concerns go out the window, by the way. To your point, if he's making threes at a 40% clip on 5 shots a night, he's a shooter now. Like you can play both of them together without any sort of worry about that. If this shooting blip or the shooting uptick for Mobley is not saying it's not real, but just not consistent and they can not guard, I just want to see it in the playoffs. I'm not saying it can't happen. It 1000% could work. I just want to see it. That's all I'm saying. I just want to see it. So that's my uncertainty.
And I feel like we've seen moments in late game scenarios this year where they've pulled one of them off the floor.
Boston. They did it against Boston both times, actually.
Yeah. And, and you still – listen, you want your best guys on the floor, right? In the playoffs and at the end of games particularly, you still want you want your best lineups, your best players on the floor together. And until we see it in the highest moment where teams spend a week exposing every weakness that you have and attacking it over and over and over again, it's a fair concern to have.
And also, I'm not 1,000% certain that their best lineup actually has both bigs in it anyway. With the way Caris LeVert's playing right now, Jason, I'm not 100% sure that Caris plus Darius, Donovan, Dean, and Mobley isn't their best 5. And maybe Max Strus when he comes back. Once again, I'm just saying there's a chance because Caris is playing incredible. That gives you, with that 5 right there, if Evan shoots like this, you can legitimately play 5 out. Dean Wade's an awesome defender and rebounder. Yeah, you're a little undersized, but just marginally. LeVert gives you some flexibility to switch on the perimeter with Darius and Donovan. And when those 3, with the way they can create, good luck trying to stay in front of them. So I'm just saying I'm not 100% certain, even if you wanted to play both bigs together. I'm not sure that's their best lineup. It very well could be. It very well could be.
Yeah.
But I'm open to the idea of it not being in a world where in the past I would have laughed you out the room if you tried to suggest that to me.
Well, I still believe Jarrett's one of their best 5 players.
That I agree with. I'm not disagreeing with that. But
in the realm of I got to see it. I got to see it. I got to see Caris in the playoffs continue to play at this level because listen, we're a third of the way through the season and he's earned the benefit of the doubt. But I mean, it's hard to look past how many years has he been in the league now? 7, 8?
He was drafted in 16, so yes.
So
I think he was drafted 16.
It's hard for me to declare 1/3 of the way through the season, all of the inconsistencies are gone, and this is the new Caris when we have 7 years of evidence that he's up and down and all over the place. He hasn't been this year.
Yeah.
Hasn't been this year. But can again, April, May, and June, when teams take a week to drill down on you, find every weakness you have and blow holes in it and expose it and go at it again and again and again and again. Can he hold up to that? So we'll see.
That's fair. Let's do a quick read, Jason. I'll get to the thing I got wrong. FanDuel is the presenting sponsor of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show and the Ultimate Cavs Show. If you want to get in on the NFL or NBA action, make sure you head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS. New customers right now, if they bet $5, they can win $150 if that first $5 bet wins. Head over to FanDuel.com/UCSS. Never waste a hunch. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. All right, Jason, I got to hold a big fat L here. I'm not going to lie. When the Cavs fired JB Bickerstaff and they announced their 2 finalists for the head coaching job were Kenny Atkinson and James Borrego, I went back, I studied some tape, looked at their offensive philosophies, and I planted my flag on the wrong side of history. I firmly planted my flag in the James Borrego camp. I thought he was the right hire. I thought Kenny Atkinson was a fine secondary choice, but hand up, my bad. I was fully committed to James Borrego being the guy to rejuvenate this offense, make the core 4 fit together. I thought some of the offense he ran in Charlotte perfectly fit the personnel that was here in Cleveland. Once again, it wasn't anti-Kenny. I just liked Borrego more.
Right.
And fast forward 25-ish games, and I could not be more wrong. Kenny Atkinson is the favorite to win NBA Coach of the Year at this point of the season. He should be the favorite to win Coach of the Year at this point of the season. The Cavs have the best record in basketball. Everything he's doing from a offensive scheme standpoint to a substitution pattern standpoint, to a getting guys to believe in themselves standpoint, to a building team chemistry standpoint, to, by the way, they stayed in Miami 2 extra nights when they didn't have to. That was Kenny's decision to just let them enjoy, have some downtime. We got a little break in the season. That does wonders for the team morale and the buy-in and trust between players and coach. He has pushed every right button so far. He has been the perfect hire. However, the Cavs came to the conclusion that Kenny was the guy to unlock Evan Mobley, paying incredible dividends so far. He's gotten the backcourt to work. He's gotten the front court to work. He's gotten the best play from guys off the bench. Karis LeVert and Ty Jerome are both in the conversation for 6th man of the year. I would have lost my mind if you tried to tell me that before the season. Literally every single thing Kenny Atkinson has touched so far this year has turned to gold. And I will sit here humbly and apologize because I was on the wrong side of history before that hire was made.
Well, I'll hold part of it with you because I said the same thing. I thought Borrego, and for the exact same reason. It's not that Kenny was a bad choice, and it was. And I mean, there's people in the Cavs who felt Borrego was the better choice, and it wasn't that Kenny was a bad option. It was they just felt like Borrego was a little bit better of a fit. And you did a great breakdown of Borrego and some of this. And who knows, like Borrego could have come here, and I'm not saying they'd have the same record, but he could have knocked it out of the park as well and done a great job here. But obviously, you can't fault what Kenny's done. You can't dispute who they ultimately landed on. Kenny's been great. I agree with you that Kenny should probably at this point for sure win Coach of the Year. I think Kobe's up for Executive of the Year, which is unusual in an offseason when you don't make any moves. Normally, the guy who wins Executive of the Year is the guy who makes the big moves. The Cavs didn't make any big moves, but just the getting the coach right and just having the patience to hold on when they had reasons to maybe veer another direction certainly puts him in the conversation for that as well.
Yeah, Kobe's got balls of steel. We kind of told him that when Bull and I were talking to him last week. His ability to block out the noise and say, I trust the roster I've built. We just got to tweak this little thing here. And by little, I mean, it's pretty big. Head coach is kind of a big part of the equation. Yeah. But to hold steady when everyone else was ready to waver, he deserves a ton of credit. And, you know, when you look at this roster as a whole, this is going to lead right into the question you still have to get answered, Jason. They don't really have a glaring need. I know The Athletic wrote each team's most pressing need 20 games into the season. And I think Varden did it for you guys. And he said, I don't know, they're 18-2. It's hard to find a real need. Like, they have 4 potential all-stars. They're getting some of the best bench production in the NBA. The one thing that there may be a little question is some front court depth and some size in the wing. And I think that's the question you still need to answer, right?
Yeah, that's what I went with. Just size, really, whether it's front court on the wing. You know, when you look at the fact, I think Atlanta is better than people think.
100%.
After watching them play, they've beaten Boston and Cleveland.
Yeah.
So I think they're probably young, a little inconsistent, maybe playing to the level of competition. But when you beat both Boston and Cleveland, you play. And I like that they've got some great length and athleticism, and that's, I think, the Achilles heel right now to the Cavs. If you had to pick something, I don't know that they're big enough on the wing. They're still undersized in the backcourt, and it puts a lot of pressure on Evan and Jarrett to sort of clean up whatever is left behind. And really, and if you start Dean at the 3, okay, well, that takes care of some of your length on the wing, but it leaves you more exposed on the bench in depth in terms of size. So I do think, just in general, one thing that we still need answered, I would say, do the Cavs have enough size?
Yeah, I agree. We keep talking about any moves. We had Windhorst on last week. He said he wouldn't push all the chips in this season because, you don't want to start that repeater offender clock too early.
He almost made it sound, and I haven't talked to him about this. It sounded to me, unless I was misinterpreting what he was saying, he was more concerned with getting close to the second apron and going big time swing and getting close to that second apron, which then hinders your moves. I was looking at it more as it's going to mess up your 28-29 season.
That's how I interpreted it. I didn't interpret Windy how you did. I thought he was saying they just don't want to start the clock yet.
See, I took it as you don't want to be adding big time money now and messing up and getting close to, you want to avoid the apron. I mean, Kobe said that you want to avoid the apron as much as possible, and not go in it at all if you can. And really, it's December 10th. We have 2 months.
Yeah.
So I don't know that
too early for anything like that.
Yeah. I don't, if they've got 9 losses at the trade deadline, that's going to be awfully tempting to just stand pat and not do anything. Now, again, you got to have a match and you got to have something worth pursuing. And you got to be able to match. Not only do you have to have something worth pursuing, you have to have something that the other team is interested in. Yeah. So it could be tricky to get something done there. What I would hate to see them do, I'd hate to see them stand exactly as they are and then start the tax clock because of $2 million.
Yeah, that makes no sense. That defeats the whole purpose of you either get under or you go make something. Standing still actually makes no sense. If it's
crazy given their record, I just feel like you either got to go or try and get out. And I wouldn't criticize either direction that they go.
No,
if they cut a couple million and get under the tax line, I totally get it. Because I'll tell you what, I think Boston. Here's a hot take for you. Well, I don't think we really talked about this. I think Boston may have 1 year left before they have to start making hard decisions. Mm-hmm. And like something to explore down the road is owners have to sell their teams because they can't make payroll. It happened in Milwaukee. That's why Jimmy Haslam's here, because Mark Lazary couldn't afford where the payroll was going. And now it's happening in Boston. How many more teams are the owners of these like high functioning elite teams with massive payrolls? Who's next? And how long are owners going to allow this, that they have to sell their team because they can't? Next year, Derek White's extension kicks in. I think Jalen's extension kicks in. Yep. And Boston's not going to be able to, they can't make payroll. So they're selling the team.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't think Boston's window is going to be as long as people think.
Yeah.
And that's why if you're the Cavs, it's tempting to kick the can down the road one more year, because it may be, the East may clear up on its own. And that 28-29 season that we're talking about, that feels like it's an eternity away, and it kind of is, that could be a really big season for them in terms of a championship. But at the same time, if they say, you know what, we really like this, we really like player X who's available that we could bring in, and we're going to press go now, I totally get that too.
Yeah, I want to push back just a tiny bit, Jason, because once again, they're in that conversation with the top 3-4 teams that can win a championship right now.
Yep.
One NBA.com power rankings doesn't prove anything, but they are right in that conversation. And the championship window may last 10 years. It may last 1 year. And I go back to that OKC team with Durant, with Russ, and with Harden.
I've written
and they made the Heat. They made the finals in 2013, lost the Heat, and we're like, oh, they're gonna make 23. Guess what? They never made it back, and they broke up the team. And there's a million different reasons. Injuries.
That was self-inflicted. That was self-inflicted.
But granted, but that was in 2013 when they were in the finals playing LeBron. It was, oh, LeBron got on this time, but this team's gonna be back time after. And
yes. Yes.
You just can't predict what's going to happen. Guys
Agreed.
are now more eager than ever to get out as soon as something goes wrong. Injuries. I saw a stat today, Jason. So I could pull it up real quick. I think I bookmarked it. But more guys have missed time this season already than I definitely bookmarked it. Hold on. I don't want to botch this.
Injuries have been all over the place.
So this season, in week 7 of this season, there have been 310 total missed games due to injury or illness. Last season, that number was 127. So you can't predict injuries. The Cavs at this point are healthy.
Yep.
If they feel like they have a chance to win a championship this year, I understand all the reasons it makes sense not to go for it and not to start but there's no guarantee you're back. And,
Agree.
And that's why I just have a hard time not being aggressive when you know you're right there.
I just don't know that there's a magical piece that's out there.
And that's fair. That's fair.
Fits what they need, and that what little they have is enticing enough to another team to pull that off. Which is why if you get up against it and you can't get anything done, and there's no piece out there that you love that fits what you need, and people aren't interested in a draft pick 7 years from now, if you have to pivot and cut a couple million, I get it. That's what I'm saying. I'm with you. If it fits, like if you can make something, then go. Press go and start now. I'm just not convinced that they're going to be able to find a match both in what they want and that they have enough appealing assets to get something done.
I keep talking myself into Herb Jones of New Orleans. If they just decide to blow it up, rebuild, he has I forget what his key is on a good contract. But if they wanted to get a first-round pick and Karis LeVert, just so they could get more cap space, just clear the books, let's rebuild everything.
Yeah.
That's a guy that I think fits very, 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 very well into the Cavs structure. First team all defense last year, Jason, 6'7", 6'11" wingspan.
Oh, he was first. I didn't realize he was first team.
First team all defense last year.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I knew he was. I thought he made a team. I didn't know he made first team.
First team all defense.
We're getting off track here, but I don't think that cap space is worth what it once was. I don't know that teams.
It's definitely not, especially for a team like New Orleans, which no free agent's going to really sign there anyway.
Right.
But if you're just trying to clear your books and give yourself flexibility, that could be a reason. Plus, they have Trey Murphy at that position. They have Brandon Ingram, who's probably going to leave in that. So, there's moves. He's just a guy that, I think they have enough to acquire him.
Yeah.
He fits very nicely into what they need, and he's on a good contract and young enough that he fits their future plans without kind of handcuffing into everything. Last thing, Jason, real quick, 2 minutes. There was a report today from your former colleague Shams who says the Heat are willing to listen to trades for Jimmy Butler. Would you break up the core 4 if it means getting Jimmy Butler?
Oh boy,
I'm putting you on the spot.
No, I don't think I would, only because Jimmy's got a player option for next year, I think. So you only got him for this year. You're only guaranteed him for this year. And I doubt that there's a way to get him without breaking up that 4. Although I wonder what his trade value really is, because again, he's a rental. Unless you can talk him into picking up the option or renegotiating something, getting some extension done, but he's old. If all you're getting is this year, I don't know that the price is going to be exorbitant, because it's only 1 year. He's obviously, everybody knows playoff Jimmy, but it's only 1 year. So I don't know that the price is going to be exorbitant, but the contract is.
The contract is, he makes 40,
39, 40, 41, or
49 million this year and a player option for 52 next season. I'm telling you right now, he's going to accept that player option or sign a longer deal at that number.
And now you're in the second apron.
Yeah, well, that puts you all the way up there. That locks you in. I actually wouldn't do it, Jason. Not only Jimmy Butler solves a lot of their issues on paper. He's been injured. He's not the same player he was 2-3 years ago. I'm not betting against playoff Jimmy, but I also think if you're looking at this window the Cavs theoretically have, I'm not sure if the price that it's going to take to get Jimmy Butler is worth it for one shot at it.
And chemistry, especially in the NBA, is so fragile. And what they have right now is working. And I don't think when you say, would you break up a piece of the core 4, you are really screwing with the pH balance of this locker room at that point. And I don't know that it's worth it. And again, you got all these guys signed up long-term. You have no contract concerns outside of Karis LeVert. You have no contract concerns for the next 3 years.
Nope.
That's unbelievable stability in the NBA. And I don't think it's worth breaking up because of how well they're playing. Yeah. Like, you know, if they're a 500 team, we're having a different conversation right now. But because that they are figuring this out and because of the leap that Evan's made and everything that we just talked about, I don't think you can do it.
Real quick, we're going to ask this on the show tomorrow. That same question, would you break up the core four? What does Bull say, yes or no?
No. I think he says no.
What does G say?
Yes.
What does Dustin say?
What brings back the best gambling return? What makes him the most money?
That's going to wrap it for this edition of the Ultimate Cavalier Show. Jason, I appreciate you, and you'll see you tomorrow on the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show. Peace.